Greetings, everybody. Greetings, everybody. I have a wonderful guest with us today with the Cannabis Media Collective. A good friend of mine named Corey Rimmel. We met at the Patients at a Time conference in Kansas City, which was just a dynamic education conference with some of the top scientists and doctors in the business, giving critical information to practitioners, consumers, and citizens alike. But I'm gonna hand it over to you, Corey. Tell us where you are, what it is that you do, and why that's important.
I appreciate it, Michael. So currently I am in Kansas City in the vault of our dispensary called Feel State.
I love it.
And, currently what I'm doing in the cannabis industry is kind of managing two different dispensaries under the Feel State brand. One is in St. Louis and the other is in Kansas City, Missouri. And both are a franchise dispensary model that we've kind of been working on for the past few years.
Right.
And, our goal is to really build a different dispensary model around the country that patients love, employees love working there, and we can, support local entrepreneurs that want to own their dispensary but may not have all the tools to build their own brand and really create something different, different experience than most of the corporate dispensaries out there. And so yeah, I've got a interesting story of how I got here, and I'd love to share that with you.
Oh yeah, let's get into that because I think what's fascinating to me is growing up in Los Angeles, in some would call the mecca of the medical cannabis, outside of the Bay Area. It was different for me moving to Atlanta and traveling and understanding like, wow, cannabis culture is different in different states and different regions. So absolutely, let's get into your background, your journey in cannabis, and how you end up in the vault.
Sure. Cannabis is a part of my life for a very long time, and it's helped me so many ways and along this entrepreneurial journey. I love everything about it, from the science, the medical benefits, the smell, the way it makes me feel, the opportunities for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And I guess it kind of starts in 2008. I guess first I'm 34. I'm from St. Louis.
Okay.
I went to school at the University of Missouri, got my master's in accounting, but really my experience came from the first business that I co-founded with a couple of friends of mine in Columbia, Missouri. It was a cookie delivery store called Hot Box Cookies.
Oh, nice.
And this, obviously the name hot boxing, is in a car is synonymous with cannabis. And, many of our customers early on were cannabis users, late night college students that we were delivering warm cookies to all across, University of Missouri campus.
Yes.
And, one of our biggest days was April 20th, 420, where we sold 6 cookies for $4.20. So we really, focused a lot on cannabis culture. This was back in 2008, before cannabis was even allowed anywhere in the Midwest. So
right.
I back then, so I ended up running that company for about 10 years. That grew it to I left when there was 5 locations. There are now 8 or 9 locations across Missouri and Kansas. And got a really, ton of experience in managing multi-unit operations, managing people, building brands, marketing, and what ended up being successful. The store is still all the stores are still in operation. Nice. During that time, I also had an online ordering restaurant delivery business called Ms. Menus that I operated for about 5 years, and helped another company called MrDelivery.com grow around the country. And so that's where I got my experience in delivery and online ordering and restaurants. And around 2011, I got to visit, there's a few different, a couple different events that happened to me that really got me into cannabis. Was one, I got to visit Amsterdam and see the consumption lounge, coffee shops.
I got to get out there.
I highly recommend it.
It's on my bucket list for sure.
And so, seeing that and seeing one store called the Bulldog, I remember had 4 locations, and I was like, I want to do this in the United States. And so ever since, then I also saw, this TV show called Weeds.
I love Weeds.
I don't know if you remember
the kindred spirits, man.
I don't remember the last episode of Weeds. Nancy Botwin is walking into her consumption lounge that she's got 50 locations from, and she's about to sell at the Starbucks. And, so those 2 events happened within, a very short amount of time. Me watching that episode and then going to Amsterdam, and this became my lifelong dream to open a multi-unit dispensary chain. Right. Ever since 12 years ago. And then I got introduced to some activists in Columbia, Missouri, that were trying to legalize medical cannabis, and I started kind of following that movement and going to all the meetings and events. And they said it was going to happen in a couple of years, and I didn't realize it was going to take 10 more years for cannabis to be legalized when I first started getting involved. But
right.
So I've been working on that ever since, just in the background of running my businesses and trying to get in the cannabis industry. And then about 2018, I decided to exit all of my businesses, and I was offered a position as the director of operations for a multi-state cannabis operator based out of Missouri, coincidentally. And they had operations in California and Maryland, and I was able to open up dispensaries in both those states and help with the cultivation extraction facilities as well.
Wow.
I got a ton of experience over the next year in the legal market of those 2 states. And then after about a year, me and some of the people from that company decided it was right to kind of venture out on our own and kind of create something a bit different, more focused on dispensaries. So, about 3 years ago, me and my 2 business partners, we created the Feel State brand, and we've been working on it ever since. And this is
too, by the way.
I appreciate it. I'll so the name, kind of comes from this concept of flow state. Have you ever heard of that before?
I'm very familiar.
And so for me, I'm always trying to live my life, to get as much flow as possible, whether that's, talking with someone, reading, meditation, yoga, and working.
And let me pause you, Corey, for the people that might be watching and listening who are not familiar with flow state. Let's back up and can you explain to them what flow state is?
Yes. It is essentially, it's when, kind of time just, seems to pass by very quickly or very slowly. You're in the zone. Your mental side is like you're fully immersed. You're just hitting on all cylinders, and you're just enjoying whatever activity or task you're doing. And when people get into that flow state, they can achieve some really good things. And for me, it's the best drug in the world, and every human has the ability to tap into that. And so I always found that when I used cannabis, I got into that flow state faster. And so I'll smoke, before I work out, before I really do anything. And
me and you both, we talked about that too.
Yeah. So,
right.
Feel State kind of came from, a friend of mine helped create the logo, the brand and everything. And, it just hit me when I realized that, flow state plus cannabis, that's the Feel State. And that's kind of how we came up with this brand name.
Absolutely. And I think flow state also, what I read recently is it's when your skill level and whatever activity you're engaged in, your skill level and the level of difficulty is well matched.
For sure.
Right. So it's not too easy to where you're being bored, and it's not too difficult to where you're just busting your ass. It's just right at its.
In that Goldilocks zone.
Exactly. And so I agree with you. I think that's an excellent way you put that. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna give you credit when I do use it in the future. But cannabis, when used in the right way, I'm a huge believer that when used at the right time, the right dose, the right setting, the right situation with the right strain, etc., it will get you closer to flow state, and no matter what you're doing, and really enhance so many things, anything in life, like you said, like
right.
whether you're going out to eat, it's going to enhance that experience. You're going to a movie, you're going to study. That's how my whole academic intellectual journey in cannabis started. Right when you mentioned back in my college days, I smoked maybe like less than half a joint, let's say a third of a joint before I went to the library, and I was in flow state in the library for like
I
5
love it.
hours. And it was when you it's funny when you talk about people say side effects of cannabis are time distortion. Like I really felt that. Like it felt like literally 2 hours went by and it was 5 to almost 6 hours. And that's when I understood, okay, wait, this plant is way more to this plant than just the recreational, approach that as young people that we take. Even coming from California, knowing of medical cannabis, I heard of medical cannabis all growing up and saw it everywhere, but I typically saw it being used predominantly with like terminally ill patients, people with
Sure.
cancer, right? People who like need to change their quality of life like right now, like every moment. And so I didn't understand growing up as a teenager that all of the medical therapeutic value of this plant. Fast forward to now. So circling back to Field State, in your opinion, what sets Field State apart from all the other dispensaries, right? Because you've traveled the world. You go to California, to Amsterdam. Everybody has their own thing. They do things a little differently. How do you guys do things differently there that sets you apart from the competition?
Yeah, I guess there's kind of two sides to this. Is our business model was created by through a franchise. So I'll talk about the franchise side first, and then more of the experience in the store second. We wanted to build a model where we could actually support the local community. And a lot of multi-unit retail chains are corporate owned, whether they're
Right.
Cannabis or they're Starbucks or you name it. And the money flows back to wherever the head of the corporation is.
Right.
And I'm a big believer in franchising, which allows one company to own the brand and then another company that's local to that city and community to own the business and keep
Right.
all the money within that community. And they
Right.
pay a licensing monthly fee
Royalty.
to the franchisor. And so that's kind of the biggest differentiator between our model and I'd say the vast majority of other dispensaries in the cannabis industry. And this hasn't been proven yet. There's no one really successfully doing this
Right.
all across the country in the cannabis industry, but it's worked in every other retail establishment industry in the world.
Right.
So we'll see if it works in cannabis. So currently we've got 2 locations. Both are franchised. Both are owned and operated by fully vertical groups here in Missouri, which means they have their own cultivation and extraction as well. And they kind of let us run the dispensary operations, yet they're the ones that own the facility and pay for the product and the expenses. So it's a mutually beneficial partnership. We need each other. The only way we're successful is if they have good things to say about us after paying us a fee, and they make money after paying us a fee.
Right. So I have a question. So
Yeah.
I love the concept of supporting the community, because too often we've seen in this new recreational cannabis market, and you said it, these corporations own these MSOs. They come in, they have a ton of money to throw around. They can throw $1 million or more at a license application prior to award, and it's not a big deal for them capital wise. When you guys come into these communities, do you and say some local business owners want to get a license to get a dispensary, do you provide resources to help people make that happen and might not be financially in the position to cover the cost of doing business on the front end?
Yeah, and that's a kind of a state by state thing. Some states it's just nearly impossible to win a license unless you have tons and tons of money and political connections. But we did work with a group through our Minorities for Medical Marijuana boot camp in Chicago, Illinois, to help them apply. And
shout out to Roz McCarthy.
Just shout out to Roz. She got me into that, and so we worked with a group. We didn't win, but we're still on the list. So maybe in the next couple of years,
Nice.
that group of women could win a license and call it Feel State. We're working with other groups to help them open up more locations, or the first location in states like Oklahoma and Colorado right now, and some of them kind of qualify for the those types of licenses as well. But yeah, we're willing to help in every aspect of the operation, whether that's pre-application, trying to apply for a license, or writing an application, building out, or you already got your store up and running. We will come in there and help manage, hire, train, run the marketing operations, do it all.
Man, I think that's really, I mean, everybody in this industry, essentially, everyone who's serious about it is a pioneer, right?
Yeah.
But that model, I think, can really shake things up in
this
space and really,
and
really give power back to the communities who are going to support that business anyway.
And I guess, the real differentiator between this and like some other licensing brand deals that you might see is we don't take any ownership. We don't take any control. So this really is the local.
You just pay a royalty, period.
Exactly. And so we're taking a huge risk by putting our brand on someone else's building, hoping that they follow our blueprint of how we think a dispensary model should run. And so it's very important to find good partners that believe in our model, which I can get into in a second as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, let's get into it. So how is the Feel State model in terms of the customer experience and just your overall approach to getting the product into the customer's hand? How is that different from everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of three pillars. It's, community, it's education, and it's that experience. And, really the first part is the experience for the employees. If you can create a culture at your retail establishment where the bud tenders, who in my opinion are grossly underpaid, enjoy being there and enjoy coming to work every single day, what happens is, everyone there is in a good mood, and that translates to good customer service on a consistent basis.
100%.
And so we've been able to create this culture where the staff likes the dispensary, and therefore leads to great customer service, and the patients love us, and they write good reviews online on Google and Weedmaps and Leafly. And so that word of mouth spreads. So, we don't have to do as much marketing as other dispensaries because a lot of our foot traffic is from organic growth and word of mouth. So that's one. We have a great experience for the patients and the employees. And then number two, we really try to be known as the dispensary that can provide education. So we want staff that has the curiosity to continue to learn and educate themselves on cannabis and know as much as possible about every product, about every strain, about every, science, related, concept.
Yes. So important. I want to just take a pit stop on that because I'm from LA. I've smoked good bud all over this country. I've been in pretty much dispensaries in most of the legal states. And it just burns me to the core when you ask a bud tender, hey, I'm dealing with insomnia. Is this a good strain? And they say, oh, I don't know. I just roll it up in a backwood and smoke it. That's the response you're going to get from 95% of these bud tenders nationwide. And to your point, yes, they are grossly underpaid. But I think there's also a tremendous lack of interest in like furthering cannabis education, understanding this plant on a much deeper level. And so that's critical. And that takes the patient experience and and customer experience to the next level for sure.
And so kind of how we do that is, we do a lot of training before someone starts out on the floor. We look for people that have had lots of experience, whether it's growing, whether it's working at another dispensary or went across the country and worked in a grow or made their own edibles or done some sort of prior cannabis, knowledge, through a university, a college. So we try to find people that really, really are lifelong, passionate about cannabis to bring onto the team. And, we want to be known as that dispensary where people can come in and ask as many questions as possible and don't feel like they're getting rushed out. Like the churn and burn model that many of these recreational dispensaries operate on. And so, we offer patient consultations. People can schedule for 30 minutes and have that for free, either video chat or in a private room. And really, really try to take the time to get to know patients, especially on their first and second and third visits. So, they see that, we're taking the time to get to know them. We don't treat them like a number.
Right.
and they may come back and spend another $10,000 with us. So those first
Right.
few visits are so
Absolutely.
crucial.
And then you got a lifelong customer, right?
Right.
Because coming from, my background is mental health. And so when you're looking at all the ways that cannabis helps people cope with mental health issues, these are issues that most people are dealing with over the course of their lifespan. This is not something that's just going to go away. It's the end of July, and by the end of August, they're not going to need this cannabis anymore. No, people
Right.
are using this for the whole duration of their lifespan. And so, to your point, when you really lock in the customer, when you want to talk about data and metrics and numbers, you might have just locked in, $100,000 plus
Exactly.
of customer spend, over the course of their lifespan. And I really think that that's the future of cannabis dispensary ownership, is not only giving power back to the communities, but also giving patients the time and the space to what I call really receive cannabis counseling, right? Because I come from a clinical background as a counselor, but I'm realizing this whole lane open up of cannabis counseling, right? So me myself, I struggle with post-traumatic stress, and it usually gives me most of my issues with my sleep, right? I'm able to cope with it during the day, but my sleep is where I take most of my losses, right? And so
Sure.
people who may not understand how to use this plant in the most effective way, they need that 30-minute consultation or more to understand this is how you use flower. Because I'm a flower guy, but this is how you use flower. This is how you use a tincture. This is how you use this X, Y, and O. And I think we just don't see enough of that. And so I'm just so glad to have you, man. And when we first met, because everything that you were telling me when we met in Kansas City, um, is groundbreaking, and it makes perfect sense. And so, sorry, I got
No,
distracted.
you're good. And I think how we came up with this idea, my partners, is like just seeing our experiences in dispensaries on the western side of the country.
Right.
And they don't take the time to want to educate you. They want to get you in and out. They want to sell you more. And the metric I use for success is how long a patient spends inside the dispensary or on our website or social media platform, not how much they spend. Because some people may be a home grower and only be able to buy here once every couple months, but if they really, really love the brand, they'll go tell all their friends and family about Feel State and get them signed up to come to our store. Absolutely. So, it's a good financial decision, from a business perspective, to focus on the customer service. Absolutely. So you do have a long-term, lifetime value of that patient. So I guess kind of the last piece of our model is supporting that local community, and kind of what we try to do differently is, allow our staff to pick and choose which organizations, which local companies they want to support in the community. And that can be, we've donated a percentage of our tips at the register to a few different organizations in each city that are local, to that community that someone in the dispensary has a connection to. We have accepted, canned food drives, coat drives. We have events, all, as many as we possibly can, and we allow other businesses to have a table and a booth inside our dispensary or outside of our dispensary, which we're having tomorrow for our 1-year anniversary party in Kansas City.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we just we want to be known as like a platform where anyone in the local community, if you got to hustle, you're trying to, grow your business, there's some sort of cross promotion that a dispensary and a business can do. And so then we try to do a ton of stuff on site, but also just go out and interact with the local community, whether that's the politicians, the local police force, all the surrounding businesses, and just tell them who we are, try to provide them free education, and explain that, yeah, there may have been a stigma in the past against cannabis, but this is different. There's a lot more research about this. This is lab tested. We've got knowledgeable people that can answer your questions. And, we can help guide you through the process, as opposed to, I remember my first, many experiences in Colorado, people are buying, edibles, 100 milligrams, and there's no guidance as to what to do with that. And so, we're very, very cautious.
At all. Right. Absolutely. When you mentioned law enforcement, I spent many years working as a clinician with youth and juvenile justice in DeKalb County here in Georgia. And
Okay.
I found that, that's kind of my time working there really is what led me to my cannabis education platform when I started to understand, wow, the criminal justice system just completely has a misunderstanding of this plant and what's really going on. Because the issue I was dealing with at the time, I had my young people that were on probation, and the penalty for breaking probation, we're talking multiple years in the state penitentiary, but they continue to smoke cannabis. Well, why? Because they're coping with post-traumatic stress. They've either witnessed, perpetrated, um, yeah, they've either been a witness or perpetrated a violent crime. Most of my clients, right? And so they're coping with post-traumatic stress. We know the data is in. Cannabis helps tremendously with it. I was able to explain that to the court. They were receptive to it. We can get into that in our next interview because we're going to have many more. But um, I say all that to say the culture in Atlanta has come a long way in a short amount of time in terms of how law enforcement has, how they interact with cannabis consumers and just citizens in the city. At what year did medical cannabis pass in Kansas City, and how has it been with law enforcement? The before, during, and after just whole experience over the past couple of years.
It was, and I know this was at least 4 years ago. I think it passed on the ballot, and then first dispensary opened up maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that.
Got it.
But it's been very, both cities, St. Louis and Kansas City, all the law enforcement we've spoken to have been very receptive of, we've given tours to, police officers, given tours to state senators and, house, city council members, and, everyone is intrigued, and then very few of them have their medical card and are going to be patients shopping at our dispensary, but they are all open to the idea of how this can help medically. And I think Missouri is on board with that. And, we'll see if it passes for recreational here this year or next year at some point. But
is it on the ballot this year for rec?
We'll find out here in the next few weeks.
Okay. Well, you know what they say. Once the medical passes, the door is open.
Right.
It's only a matter of time. But I'm a firm believer that this plant is medicine that's used recreationally.
Right.
Right. I'm a firm believer of that. I think even when people are using socially, I don't even like to use the word recreation. I like to say just socially, right? It's still a medical and therapeutic value in terms of reducing that anxiety.
Sure.
And all of those things. And so what do you think is the next market Feel State is really focused on? I don't want you to give your whole playbook out.
Sure.
I'm just curious, what do you, because I'm here in Atlanta, things are real tricky here, but things are moving at a snail's pace, but they're moving.
Yeah.
What markets do you guys have on your radar? Missouri?
Yeah. So, we're looking at, multiple states right now. I'm in talks with many groups here in Missouri that have existing dispensaries and dispensary licenses they still have yet to open. Mm-hmm. I'm in talks with groups in Michigan, Ohio, Colorado, Oklahoma, and a couple other states as well.
You say Oklahoma's the Wild Wild West, they say.
Right. And, they just implemented, metric and put a moratorium so you can't add more licenses. And so I think a lot of operations in that state will close down. And, I like the open market best because it allows the cream to rise to the top, and and so allows for anyone to get in the industry besides people that just have lots of money behind them.
Right.
And so, in a perfect scenario, we would work with multiple different groups in a state like Oklahoma, and that are all independently owned and operated dispensaries, and all under the same brand, that we can get buying power and shared economies of scale and expenses for each one of these groups. And yeah, so kind of what I'm working on right now is to kind of go to another state. Is we need to create, and we've done this, but we're all constantly building it, is a system. It's a franchise system. It's similar to what McDonald's invented, Chick-fil-A has mastered, you name it, any of the multi-unit retail stores that have thousands and thousands of locations around the world have created. It's, we want to be able to drop our system into any city in the country and teach a staff team of how to hire, how to train, how to operate the dispensary, and most importantly, how to drive sales to that dispensary. And that really kind of is our, another secret sauce, I guess we have is, this marketing plan that is a lot of guerrilla marketing, grassroots, social media, text messages. It's nothing crazy, but we have a system where we can teach bud tenders and managers at the local level how to run a localized marketing campaign to really connect with the community and get people to come visit your dispensary and give you a chance, and without having to spend tons of money on billboards, radio, TV, magazines, things like that.
Which may not even be as effective as word of
mouth.
Right. And so, one thing I'm curious about, Feel State, it has a very craft grow type of feel, right? So, and you mentioned scale earlier. Is your vision to be one of these dispensaries that, is attached to some 100,000+ square foot cultivation center, or are you focused more on smaller, and small is subjective, right? But, not industrial size, but, more craft boutique grows? 'Cause I'm a firm believer, and I know you're a flower guy too. I just don't believe that the best bud can be grown on an industrial scale. I just don't believe it. I think that the smaller,
I would agree,
boutique grows are where you're going to get your best product.
Yeah, I mean, our focus right now is just on the dispensaries. The Feel State brand is only associated with dispensaries.
Got it.
But could that brand Feel State live on a pre-roll or an eighth of flower here in the next few years? It, for sure could. We're trying to build a brand, that is, can compete with any of the big brands in the country. And, we want to have good partnerships and relationships with people that are cultivating, but we don't have any intention of owning our own cultivation. And, so right now it's, Feel State is just a dispensary brand, but I foresee in the future, we may need to transition our model in certain states, or, as consolidation happens, to, grow the company faster pace if needed, and put our brand on a flower. And, really the only company that might have a similar model to us that has, in my opinion, done it successfully nationwide is Cookies.
I knew you were about to say that.
And they're the only company that I've really seen that has built a brand that I would pay money to license to in another state or another country. But their main focus is the cultivation brand. They're known for their genetics. They have a story. They've got, Burner, Wiz Khalifa, but, backing it, it's and then they also have dispensaries called Cookies, but the dispensary is not their main focus. It's the cultivation that supplies the product for the dispensaries.
And the culture.
Right. They have a cannabis culture. They got people behind them.
I think their P&L would show a lot of balance between merch and actual cannabis product. But I'm sorry to cut you off.
And that's kind of what we're modeling after slightly. But there's no blueprint on how to run these cannabis businesses. Right. So we're all startups, even them, and we're still trying to figure it out as we go. And right now it's just dispensaries, and we want to expand the number of locations around the country. And we'll see where it goes. My model of creating businesses has always been a lesson I learned from this book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. It's first get the right people on the bus in the right seats, and then figure out where to go. And we're just trying to build the best team possible we can. There's a lot more people on this Feel State team than just me. Right. And we'll adapt where we have to, if we have to change our model. But I think one thing that is consistent in our approach and many other successful companies is focusing on the brand and what people say behind your back. Your reputation is everything. And if people say good things about you on Facebook or Reddit, or just when they're talking to their friends, that's how word of mouth spreads. And that's how you build a brand that is worth paying for in another state or another part of the country.
Yes. And man, you said a mouthful when you just said, what are people saying about you behind your back? That's what really counts.
Right.
Real. That's a fact. And that's what locks those customers in. And man, Gems. You just dropped a lot of gems on the people just now.
Well, I can go into more elaborate of kind of our marketing. Our main marketing plan is to get Google reviews, Leafly reviews, Weed Maps, and Facebook up. And when I ask, patients when they walk into one of our locations, how did you hear about us on their first visit? 80% or more of the time they say, I found you online. And people are addicted to their phones. They're addicted to 10 social media platforms. They search, ask Google or Siri for everything.
Right.
And if you don't appear first on that, or if people can't find you, then you're missing out on a huge opportunity.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right, because when I'm exploring, because my issue whenever I'm back home in LA, I'm always looking for particular strains. I don't necessarily, because the dispensary experience is so watered down anyway.
Right.
Like,
right.
They actually shout out to 64th and Hope, I believe is the name of it. It's a new Black woman-owned dispensary.
All right, I'll check that one out.
I haven't been there yet. Check them out. Kareem Webb.
I'm friends with him on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I know who he is.
Yep. Kareem is involved. Kareem is involved in that. Big shout out to Kareem and the wonderful things he's doing at Fourth Movement. But when I'm home, I'm always looking for certain strains. That's what I jump on Weed Maps for, right? And if I can't find that strain, the dispensary that I do, I am a loyal customer to, is Jungle Boys. They go by LA Farmers, in LA. But and so, but point of me explaining that, when I go to Jungle Boys, I'm always looking at the reviews, right? And like, we care, customers, consumers, we care about the reviews, like that matters,
right?
Especially when you're talking about if you're not living in a town where it can be just delivered to your doorstep in a timely manner, and you have to get in your car, drive, go, wait in line, to spend time out of your day, which you're never going to get back. It matters, right? So you're absolutely right that the Leafly, the Weed Maps, all of the various platforms where customers can leave reviews, that's huge.
Yeah, and when I first got into this industry, I just read hundreds of reviews of dispensaries all around the country, and I kind of tracked them all on a spreadsheet of what people were talking about when they visited a dispensary. And the interesting thing that I saw was, when you go to a restaurant, and you leave that restaurant, you leave a review, or someone asks how it was, the quality of the food is the most important part when you leave a restaurant, but when you leave a dispensary, most people are looking for the customer service. They're looking for knowledgeable bud tenders. They're looking for great product selection, variety, deals, pricing. The quality of the product is expected. If you don't have fire weed at your dispensary, no one's coming there anyways. So, and everyone's got the best genetics. Everyone's got the best weed, at least in their head they do.
Right.
So when you're competing with other dispensaries, you're all selling the same stuff. It's like,
absolutely.
How do you differentiate yourself? It's all about the experience, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree with you more. The quality of the experience is what determines that, right? Like, for instance, when I'm in LA, if I need, I don't usually use edibles, but if I'm sick, I have a sore throat, or I'm dealing with something where I can't, some sinus stuff, that smoking is a drag, then I'll go to MedMen, because I know MedMen carries the Kiva chocolate bars that I love, right? Now, I know the customer experience is kind of so-so at MedMen, but guess what? I take the time out to put that on the review. Like, went to MedMen today, experience was so-so again, but I got my, Kiva dark chocolate or whatever. And so everybody is supposed to have some fire. You're absolutely right. So, and I think some of these huge markets, especially LA, in my opinion, I think most listeners and viewers would agree, most of the bud in LA dispensaries is trash, if I'm just being honest. In a lot of the big metropolitan cities, I would say, because they get to play on the tourism factor, right?
Right.
Where people are coming from a prohibited state, to where they can't walk into a store and buy bud. So just the whole experience of actually going into a store and buying bud is just like fascinating to people, right? But a lot of people don't know that they really don't have any fire. But when you're in these smaller markets, in the Kansas cities and these towns that are not, 10, 15 million plus people, you have to have some fire.
Right.
Like, period.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And in being able to, in my opinion, all the flower in Missouri is good if it's priced appropriately. It's like, if, we'll carry everything if it's priced appropriately. And, we've got some connoisseurs on our team that, are able to determine what the market value or rate is. And so while I may not smoke the $20 eighths that we sell, I still think it's a great product because other people will, and they can't tell the difference, and it helps them, have stress relief. So it's kind of all a matter of perspective what fire weed is, but the people that are talking behind your back the most on the message boards, they are connoisseurs, and they are the ones you do need to make sure you've got some good stuff in and it's priced appropriately, and you're not, gouging the customer and trying to squeeze out a few extra dollars when the dispensaries down the street are charging for less. And so just monitoring the pricing is another huge area where, we try to be the lowest price, the best deals, and really, try to work on this high volume, low margin model with multiple stores.
And you know what, man? You just said something very interesting. I know we're running out of time, so I want to take a note to have a conversation about this on our next interview, because I think we there's so much to unpack that I didn't even get a chance to get into. I'm so curious on how dispensaries actually source their product, right? And when you say we got some connoisseurs on the team who determine the market and what's going on, I'm really interested in taking a deep dive on that conversation, because a lot of consumers really don't even understand that whole process and how that works. That it's a whole system in place that is working behind the scenes before you even walk in the door and see what your options are.
Right. I mean, it's a full-time job. Someone just analyzing these menu sheets from wholesalers, and so in each state you can only buy and sell within state lines. So we're only allowed to buy from Missouri grown cultivators and manufacturers. If I had my choice, I'd probably be buying a lot more from California, Oregon products, and they could ship it here one day. But for now, we have very limited. Someday. Right now, it's just it's a limited number of cultivators that are even up and running in this state. I would say 20 or 30 really control the whole market, companies, if not less than that. And so I've got my business partner, Mitch is more of the cannabis connoisseur of our team, and he is the one has built the relationships with the sales people at each cultivator. And that's really what this game is about. It's just like selling the black market. It's relationships. It's, you have to build, you've got to go meet the people. You got to talk to them. You got to, support your vendors just like you would support, the customer coming in. And so we try to have really strong relationships with our vendors and make sure if we're going to carry them on our shelf, all our bud tenders have knowledge about the product, and we'll recommend those in certain scenarios of if someone's looking for that price point or that particular ailment they're trying to relieve. So it's really just a lot of trial and error, and see what product's selling, what price point. You never know for sure. So we've made some mistakes, but you get some samples in, you try it, you try to negotiate with the buyer. The more you buy, the cheaper you get. So the more stores we get eventually, I think we'll have more leverage in the buying. Right now, with only 2 stores, we're not on the top of the totem pole here in Missouri. So, we kind of get, base rate prices, but I say we do have relationships with certain cultivators that get us, first priority over the best strains when they, are first harvested, because we know, people in this industry. And so,
absolutely.
I also try to get involved with what the bud tenders are going to push. If a bud tender at our store loves a certain product and a certain cultivator, and they have a passion about talking about that product, well, then we should buy more of it, because they're the ones that are really directing what is selling at our stores.
Absolutely. And man, I cannot wait to get back to Kansas City. I love going to places where cannabis is legit and they have good food, because that's just like a win-win. Another quick question before we wrap up. I should be getting that. They recently made the process of getting your Georgia medical cannabis license a little easier. It used to be like your heart had to be beating outside of your chest, upside down, and all kinds of crazy conditions. But can out of state medical card holders visit your stores, or do you have to have a Missouri medical card?
Unfortunately, I think there is not reciprocity in
Okay,
Missouri.
got
But I know Missouri medical cards could visit some other medical states. There's not many left, but
Well, we got to
um,
get on the lawmakers about that.
yeah, yeah.
For sure. Like they got,
Um,
I can carry my gun in Missouri, but I can't go into the dispensary. So,
Right. There's a lot of rules in the state that make it very
right,
challenging to operate. And it's
right.
why, real big businesses have not entered the space because,
Mm,
there's challenges with banking, with credit cards, with, the amount of compliance and rules we have to follow and
yes.
just, the changing of the rules. It does make it difficult. And, another fact that Missouri, you can only purchase up to 4 ounces per month. So
Wow.
a large percentage of our patient base runs out of their allotment each month, and they would like to spend more money at our store, but they're not allowed to.
And
So they
so
can
that's
raise it to 8 ounces, but most people don't know how to do that, and that's a whole another hurdle you got to
wow.
overcome.
And so the state, whatever organization or entity is tracking every citizen's purchase, and
Right,
once you hit 4 ounces, you're maxed out.
right. It doesn't The system doesn't allow us to ring up anymore. Um,
What?
and so yeah, it's we can't offer as good a customer service as I would like because
Right.
people get upset at moment, and it's like there's nothing we can do.
What's
So
the
that was
law? What's the lawmakers' rationale behind that?
they think that if you buy more, it may get to the black market somehow. But,
They're trying
I think the more people, my defense for that, the more people that are buying from a dispensary means the less like the prices will go down and, the less likely someone will go to the black market.
Man,
But
hello. These
yeah,
these lawmakers. Another thing I'm looking forward to. And we could go on for days talking. I'm gonna try to wrap this up soon. But one thing I look forward to is I'm hoping that I live long enough to where 15, 20 years from now, we have a whole new generation of politicians and lawmakers who understand this plant and are not caught up in this J. Edgar Hoover, Harry Anslinger, FBN prohibition paradigm where they come up with these asinine rules like you just mentioned. It just don't even make sense. Like, yeah, we're going to limit the patient's ability to buy the medicine because we don't want the bud from the dispensary to land in the legacy market.
right. It's
What?
backwards.
Whatever. But listen, Corey, I just want to thank you for your time today. Time is our most valuable asset. So I just thank you so much for taking the time out to chat with me, tell me all about Feel State and your journey in cannabis. We have to follow up this conversation because I want to know more about, you know, how dispensaries are operating in Missouri and what this means for consumers and for citizens and take a deeper dive on the cannabis education piece, right? And
Sure.
how do we develop programs and systems for patients who are really dealing with life changing disorders and medical conditions? How do we get cannabis in their life to use it for them to use it effectively? And that's what I'm all about.
Cool.
Everybody doesn't need to use cannabis, but everybody should have the information at their fingertips so that if they can make their own informed decision on how or if to use it.
I would agree. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Would love to have another session to go over all that. And
Yes, indeed. And
yeah, this
maybe
has
our
been
next one
fun
will be an in-person session.
for sure.
Have a real session and really break it down. I would love that, man. And so I'll let you know when I make some plans to come to Kansas City. And you also, if you ever find your way near or in Atlanta, let me know.
Will do.
All right. Thanks you so much, Corey. We'll get together next time. Have a
Thanks
great
a lot, Michael.